Hello everyone! Welcome to this Death Battle Season 10 prediction video by me, Thunderdrill, your favorite YouTuber. That's a lie. I've made a previous Death Battle Season video, but that was not a prediction, that was just making a season in a way that I think would be believable. This is specifically taking into account Season 10, so things coming out around the year. Their Death Battle poll, which has confirmed episodes, including the one they revealed at MagFest. Meaning, if you don't want spoilers for that episode, I suggest you don't watch this video, because we're going to talk about it. One of the big things we need to take into account is the Champions poll. Not just the winners, Bilcord and Colex, but also the other matchups, because they can tell us things. For example, any new franchise that was gonna be introduced with this likely isn't getting a new episode into the show this season because it wouldn't do 2 episodes of the same franchise, which really doesn't impact any of these because the only character that I could see them bringing in for this franchise at least first are the characters that are in the matchups. Like, they're not bringing in anyone else from Azura's Wrath except Azura. Among Us and Fall Guys don't even have others. The only two that's exceptions is Genshin and Kamen Rider, where I could see them using a different Kamen Rider or many of the other Genshin characters. I'm surprised that honestly that Zhao was the one on the poll. Other things, like minor things, for example, like it's likely that we aren't getting a Lantern fight because they would have gotten Kyle Rayner for that. Or like maybe we aren't getting any indie games because of Ori and Minecraft, though that one's less likely, I'd say. And for further ado, let's start off with Bowser vs. Eggman. This is a matchup that everyone's been saying, and I'm a big fan of, and I agree. People have been saying that this would be the finale of Season 9 before it got revealed, and I always knew it wasn't for one big reason. Sonic Frontiers was coming out, and yes, that did make like perfect timing, but that also would mean that Eggman would have new things that could make the episode almost immediately invalid. I'm pretty sure Bowser does still win, from what I know, but nothing doesn't know if that was the case. I'm a big fan of this because it is like the only real Mario vs. Sonic fight that I think they're missing that deserves to still happen. And I could see it doing in 3D and 2D. I like the idea that Nem said of having it be an army battle in 2D and then turn into 3D for when Bowser and Eggman themselves are fighting. Well, Eggman's mech. I like the idea of Fury Bowser coming in, Eggman pissing on the moon, or I guess Bowser in this case. I think this fits the perfect premiere when the Mario movie and Sonic stuff is still getting hype with Sonic Prime and Frontiers is still getting stuff, so like DLC. So this feels like a very like shoe-in. But if this is not the premiere, I'm leaning towards Ant-Man vs. the Atom. Death Battle likes to do things correlating to the big movies coming out through the time. They did Black Adam and Wanda last season because of Multiverse of Madness and the Black Adam movie. There's a new Ant-Man movie coming out. This is one of the big Marvel vs. DC fights they haven't done. Wherever you see like on Reddit and stuff, this is the Marvel vs. DC fight that people are the most okay with and most often talk about wanting. So like literally everything points to them doing Ant-Man Adam. Hell, Adam is probably like not as famous as a thing, but even then, he was also in the Black Adam movie, so he is more in the public conscious now too. Oh, so if this is make it even more of a perfect time for him to do Ant-Man Adam. It'd probably be 2D, and there's an instant 0 out of 10 if they don't do the track being called Size Matters, or some other kind of innuendo about, instant 0 out of 10. It could literally be the best episode, but if the track isn't a joke about thick size, it's an instant 0 out of 10. Next is Vader vs. Obito. They always do Star Wars, and there are 4 options for a Star Wars character to see them doing this season. Mando, Vader, Palpatine, and Han Solo. Solo, I feel like they're gonna wait until Star Trek has something to work with, so they can do against Kirk. Palpatine, it could save for when Kingdom Hearts 4 comes out, because while Xehanort isn't in Kingdom Hearts 4 because his story ended in 3, that still was gonna get hype from Kingdom Hearts, and the fact that it doesn't, that means he won't get anything new that would change the verdict, as if Xehanort doesn't win that. And that leaves between Mando and Vader, and Mando is getting new seasons, but also they just did Boba, and I feel like they wouldn't do Boba again, which is what Mando would be for more casual fans. I know Mando gets other stuff too, like Darksaber instead of the regular lightsaber, but you just get my point. So doing Vader, who is the most likely option for me, and out of all his options, I think they would go for Obito. It's kind of a run back of Kakashi. It's fairer than Obi-Wan Kakashi, because Obito is a higher tier, but I'm pretty sure Vader does still win. And though Obito does have hacks and is, as I said, stronger, so that this fight is actually more interesting. And personally, my preferred for Vader is Saber from Faye, just because I want to see Faye on Death Battle, but I know that this is more likely one, so this is a prediction, I'm putting this here. Next up is the Magvest episode, Dragon Ball vs. the Trojan Undead. This is an episode I'm actually pretty excited for, despite not playing any of the games, because whilst I haven't played them, I've seen a lot of YouTubers play them, and I have a lot of memories of watching them be played. Plus, just knowing the impact that these two games have left makes me excited to see these icons being covered. Especially considering they're the first real creator characters Death Battle's looked at. I mean, as in characters that have so much wild arsenals, because normally you're just supposed to focus on one part, but in the Versus access you're looking at everything they have. I'm pretty sure the Dragonborn wins. This fight is in 3D, they've confirmed it. And they said that it wasn't the premiere, but it also wasn't guaranteed to not be the premiere, but I'm leaning towards it not being the premiere. I actually feel like this has a chance of being the mid-season finale. After all, Boba Predator was confirmed to almost have been the premiere, and that ended up being the mid-season finale for season 9. So I could see this being, despite being the first episode revealed including the ballot ones, being the mid-season finale of the season. And it's exciting. Dragon Ball wins. Cool. Whitebeard vs. Escanor. This here is one of more me pick. I'm a big fan of One Piece. I've been getting into recently, and Whitebeard was one of the coolest characters, and this is a popular matchup, and he had the whole memes going around with him, so he has more public content for like the more casual side of fans. And Escanor brings in a new franchise, and it's a Whitebeard W. And that's just always a good thing. Actually, I'm not certain it's a Whitebeard W, but I have heard that it is, mainly because of Death Battle's rules of using characters at their peak. Prime Whitebeard is like one of the strongest characters in One Piece, and I've heard that he should win. And so, but if he does lose, something I'd like to do is have his Devil Fruit get reborn, because when a Devil Fruit Eater dies, their Devil Fruit is reborn, to show that he dies. Mainly because it lines up with the thing I want, no matter who wins, the winner has to stay standing up when they die. That's like one of the most iconic things Whitebeard is known for, and that should translate pretty well onto Escanor, considering the main theme is being big manly guys. Also, the track name needs to be higher than the sun, because it references the meme, and also makes sense outside of the context of the meme, considering like the highest position in the world that Whitebeard is. So, again, I'm excited for if the episode happened. It's one of my personal favorites on the list, purely on the Whitebeard side. And apparently he wins, which is great. This would D in 2D, absolutely. Rick versus the Doctor. And now I know somebody's gonna say, oh, but what about the fact that the whole Justin Roiland thing? Hey, that doesn't matter. It's not like they were gonna get Justin Roiland to voice Rick anyway. The series is continuing without him anyway. So like, I don't. Plus, the season list would have been settled on beforehand, and I feel like that is not a big enough deal to replace the episode, especially considering everyone sees a lot of interest in it. It brings in two really big franchises, and is a kind of different cartoon fight. I could see this being done in 2D and hand-drawn styles, especially considering the cartoon. I confirmed cartoon fight is gonna be in 2D because that was the polar one. And I feel like this hits a perfect balance. The problem with them doing a different cartoon fight is that it kind of has ends up overlap with Bilcord, but this fits the music cartoon fight whilst also not having too much to overlap with that. So I think this is a perfect fit for the season. And I think it'd be cool seeing these multiversal detectives. Also, that would mean that it boosts the chances of them doing Ryder versus Constantine when Constantine eventually gets something that prompts him to use him instead of using Doctor, because Ryder's my preferred for Constantine, so based. Joker Sojourno, speaking of Persona characters. This is here because JoJo's Part 9 has just started, and the protagonist YuGiOh seems to be the alternate universe version of Giorno. That's why it's YuGiOh, because Giorno's the son of Dio. And so there's connection for Giorno. Persona 5 is definitely near the end of its life cycle as the big Persona game. Like, I don't think it's probably like in 2024 is when we're gonna first start seeing like actual stuff for Persona 6. But I would not be surprised if we got announced at least a teaser this year, meaning Persona 5 is at the end of its limelight. Meaning this is the perfect time for them to finally do this massive matchup. I could see them doing in 2D or 3D, more likely 3D, because then they don't have to make sprites for all of Joker's personas. I don't expect them to use all of them, but Joker is all about changing personas. He should have one, and Giorno has the models from the fighting games. I'm not gonna say who wins. I lean towards Joker, but I have no idea, because that's like the hell of this debate. But I would be very excited for it, considering it's two characters I love. And this wasn't on the ballot, and that makes me think that the reason it wasn't on the ballot was because they were already doing it. So, what put on the ballot? They're already doing it. Same thing with Bowser Eggman. That's the biggest reason to this here, honestly. Next is Bilcord, a episode that's already confirmed. That's why the thumbnail has all these weird dots and looks way better than the rest because it's official rather than made by me. I've already said my piece on this episode since it was on my previous season list. That means at least one episode of my season list of a believable season was correct, and it was in fact believable. I still like the idea of it being a 2D episode, but because of the reality warping powers, it ends up becoming hand-drawn. I like the idea of Bill Cipher or the other turning the other into stone, because that's how they're like things in their stories. I like when I hear them talk more about Every Falls. It's nice to have a My Little Pony character with an episode that doesn't suck, hopefully. And speaking of confirmed episodes, this would be the mid-season finale, and the mid-season return would be Colix. This is an episode I'm excited for purely because I love hearing about them talk about franchises I don't know anything about. And this is exactly talking about franchises that I don't know anything about. The most I know about Alex is that he's the matchup for Cole, and the most I know about Cole is that he's the one guy in PlayStation All-Stars who has a clone of himself that is just evil version. That isn't even a separate character in his own series. This is just a different version of the same person. So hearing about these two and finally having this matchup that deserved to have happened so long ago feels nice. Especially with all the current effects that they have. The effects in Death Battle have gotten so much better. I feel like this is going to be one of the prettiest looking battles they have this year. And as a mid-season return, it fits perfectly. They know that this is a matchup that people are hyped for, so what better way to bring in back the season after the break than with this matchup? Going in after that is a spray fight for Gus vs. Claire or for Dimitri. I got the thumbnails just for Claire, but honestly, I could see both happening. It's mostly Claire just because I want to differentiate from my last video where I did Dimitri. I'm 100% certain, basically, that Gus is coming back. It's just who he's fighting. I'm like 51% Claire, 48% Dimitri, remaining 1% being some wild curveball appearance for one of other Guts opponents, like a nightmare run back or some shit. But I'm leaning more towards Claire, very slightly. I have a bingo card appearing later on, and you can see that it's just Guts. It's not Guts specifically, because I'm not 100% certain on any of Guts' matchups that they would do. I'm just certain that Guts is coming back, and Claire feels slightly more likely than Dimitri. It's basically, will they do the matchup that they prefer, or will they do the matchup that brings in that franchise that they've been wanting to bring in for a while, whilst also bringing Guts back. Next is Star Lord Commander Shepard. I could see this being done 3D or 2D. This is for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. 3, obviously. Chris Pratt is also being notorious for being the voice of Mario in the new Mario movie, so that is honestly part of the reason why I think they do Star Lord over one of the other Guardians, other than him being like the main protagonist and whatnot. And Commander Shepard is his most popular matchup, brings in a new franchise, and generally, I'm honestly leaning towards this because the Death Battle Cassie brought up the Sun God thing, and that basically immediately gave Star Lord the win. But they wouldn't do that for the Death Battle, meaning they'd actually have a debate, and I actually don't know who would win without giving Star Lord his crazy stuff. I'm still leaning towards him, but Shepard might have some stuff I don't know about, because I don't know about him much anyway, or her. I know she's dead. It's you select what gender they are, so they actually might use female Commander Shepard, which in that case probably makes that might make it win, because Star Lord, at least if his comic version is similar to his movie version. Next up is Mysterious Scarecrow. Fun fact, I had to get this thumbnail back from a screenshot of my previous video because I lost the files. This is only here because they always do 2 Marvel vs. DC fights first season recently. They did Scarlet Zatanna and Black Adam Apocalypse. They did Batman, Iron Man, and Lex vs. Doom. So we have Ant-Man Adam, but there's all the other big movies have opponents that aren't the other franchise. There's the Guardians, 2 biggest ones are Star Lord Commander Shepard and Rocket vs. Stitch. Blade has Buffy the Vampire Slayer as his biggest opponent, and even in the DC side, the Blue Beetle movie, his most popular opponent's Geostellar, the Mega Man Star Force. This guy. So when I think about what other Marvel vs. DC fight they could do, I feel like they would do for one of the biggest ones, which is Mysterio vs. Scarecrow. I've already said my piece on it, so if you want to watch my other video, I need more views. Kai vs. Saber. Last season did not have a fighting game episode, and I'm still adamant that it would be Guilty Gear. But now I'm leaning towards Saber over Jin. Most because 1, I see the fan base prefers this matchup. 2, Blaze Blue might not be too much for them willing to do, whilst Faye is a franchise that they've been requested to do constantly. This is might be my prefer for Kai over Jin now, purely because I want to see Faye on Death Battle. Also because it'd be funny for them to bring in Saber and Vader back in the same season, but not against each other. I feel like this is more likely them doing a Ragnar vs. Soul run back, or any other Guilty Gear character. Honestly, the only other matchup I think might be is Bridget vs. Astolfo, because part of the reason Guilty Gear blew up was because of Bridget. And I know that is a matchup. And Astolfo is one of the biggest fake characters, so that I would not be surprised. But I'm leaning more towards this. Kai's cool, Saber's cool, this matchup's cool. Probably 2D. Go vs. Makima. This is the other matchup that everyone's been predicting, because Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen are the big ones, and these two have been compared by even non-versus people as the debate who would win. And when they do when a matchup gets this big, even outside the versus sphere, I feel like Death Battle is gonna do it soon. And so, near the end of the season for this season, so they can still have more anime stuff to work with for the two of them. Still get the hype of Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man before it starts dying down a bit. Honestly, even without the anime, I feel like this was possible because Chainsaw Man got so big despite being just a manga. The anime just boosted it further. Plus, with that means they can bring Makima and Gojo back against opponents that are arguably more fitting for them later. Later, when the series starts reaching their endpoints. Also, that's a reason why I feel like they wouldn't do Yuji versus Denji, because Yuji and Denji still have more to go. Makima and I think Gojo also, though I'm not 100% certain, are all already ended their main parts in the story. This is a match of almost everyone's predicting for either this season or next season. It's happening eventually. Ruby versus Maka. So, I'm almost certain a Ruby episode, because Volume 9. And Volume 9 has a chance of being the end of Ruby. But not necessarily. But that doesn't matter much, because they recently said that it doesn't necessarily need to be the end of Ruby for them to do this episode. It just needs to... Ruby needs to get like more further on, because when they made the thing with Monty that confirmed this episode was happening one day, was because Ruby was like in the second season, and it was wanted to wait until Ruby actually had stuff to work with. We know how little Yang had to work with when they did her episode when it was only season 2. And I feel like this is a thing, a very likely option. Honestly, the big reason I feel like not is because of episode 200 coming up, and that next season, and that feels like a very likely slot for it. But I'm still expecting a Ruby episode for certain this year, just not sure which character. For the finale, it's Galactus vs Unicron, because here's the thing: people were predicting this for season 8, and it didn't happen. Some people predicted for season 9. But it didn't happen, and I knew it wasn't going to happen, because why would you put this massive matchup in between your anniversary season and your 10th season? No. You saved this episode for one of those two. Again, this is another situation of this might be episode 200. Right? And if it isn't episode 200 or the season finale, I don't think it's happening anytime soon. But I think it is happening anytime soon. Because it is in this list. I think they've realized that people wanted this matchup for season 8 and season 9, and now are finally going to give it to us. They've been waiting for season 10. They themselves said that this was the season that they was going to bring in a lot of characters that people have been dying to see. So, finally bringing this matchup. This is a matchup that people have been dying to see ever since they self-confirmed it. They later have on said that none of those matchups are actually confirmed, other than Ruby vs. Maka. But then that doesn't necessarily deconfirm them either. That just means they aren't 100% set in stone that it will happen. But I still think this will. There's not much more to say. It's a big fight in epic proportions. It's probably the biggest scale fight we'll have. Maybe, other than maybe Scarlet Tatana. Probably bigger than Scarlet Tatana, let's be honest. Before we have 3 honorable mentions and then the bingo card. First up, Yang vs. Maka. This is here because this is what I feel like is the most likely Ruby episode, if not Ruby vs. Maka. Because Yang makes the most sense for him to be the other Ruby character, since they need bring her back to look at her properly now that she actually has stuff to work with. Bakugo's whole story thing has ended in My Hero, so this is a perfect time to use him. This is one of the more popular matchups. It's not their best matchup. I could see them doing Vi instead, since they've already used League. But yeah. Ash vs Yugi. This is a matchup that would be on the list 100%, but I forgot about it until I made it, and then I didn't know where to replace it, so it's just here in the honorable mentions. I'm 100% expecting the episode. More than some of the episodes in the list, but I just don't know what episode to replace, so it's here instead. And Ash's story is ended, YuGiOh is still big and brings in a new franchise. Yeah, this is happening. Versus Megamind, it's in the same slot as Joker Giorno and Bowser Eggman. I feel like the only reason this wasn't in the champion spot was because it was already happening. They said that they want to do a bunch of matchups that were like big common requests. This is another one of them. And now we have the bingo card. Bowser, Eggman, Joker, Giorno, AntMan, Adam, and Gojo Makima are all in the corners because they're the episodes I have the biggest expectations of happening. Then we have Vader, Obito, Whitebeard, Escanor, Rick Doctor, Guts, Unicron, Shepard, Ruby, Mr. Scarecrow, Saber, Gus, Unicron, YuGiOh, Mega Man, which we've already talked about. Now let's talk about the ones I haven't. Arc vs. Stitch. This is the only other guard this episode could see them doing other than Star-Lord, Commander Shepard. Gandalf vs. Dumbledore. Despite all the controversy, Hogwarts Legacy means that this is the biggest Harry Potter has been in a while. And does that means Harry Percy Jackson or Gandalf vs. Dumbledore? And since they've just used Lord of the Rings, I'm leaning towards Gandalf vs. Dumbledore. Marco Makoro Sensei, this one's just for me, but the Raincoat is coming out this year, and that is the spiritual successor to Danganronpa. This is probably the best time to do it. They've also talked about wanting to do this episode, either Danganronpa episode and an Assassin's class from this episode. This brings in both. Liu Kang YuGiOh. If not Kai or a Guilty Gear character, Liu Kang and YuGiOh is the most likely fighting game episode. I feel like we're almost guaranteed to get one since Season 9 didn't. Splinter vs. Sifu, an episode that they've shown interest in. TMNT is big. Kung Fu 4 is coming out. I'm pretty sure next year, but that could still tie in somewhat. It works. It's popular. Let's go. Freddy Pennywise. They've started doing horror movies. This is the next one after Jason Michael. It's very different than Jason Michael. So even if you don't like that episode, this probably will not fall in the same pit trap as that one. It's a very interesting one. And the whole dream thing. Apparently Freddy Krueger wins, and that's pretty cool. Blue Beetle vs. Star Force. Remember I said the Blue Beetle movie is coming out? Well, it is. And I'm pretty sure Star Force is his most popular opponent. Yes, Star Force appeared in Season 6, but because of it being in a Battle Royale, he didn't really get the coverage he would normally get. So I think it still makes sense to bring him back. Same thing Ghost Rider vs. Spawn. But the difference is, Ghost Rider is so big that he deserves to come back no matter what. And Spawn definitely deserves to come back. And finally, the Serial Mask Battle Royale. Recently, they made a tweet talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Battle Royale. And I'm pretty sure that's a hint that they're getting a Battle Royale this season. And I feel like this is the most popular one. And the most likely one. So, I hope you all enjoyed this rapid fire round and this prediction video of all these matchups. Jesus Christ, the reality's falling apart as we know it. Right. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye!